Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to take a few minutes for everybody to start trickling in. Good morning. I'll be waiting for just a minute here while we have a few more attendees joining. Good morning, Miss Alex. Good morning. We'll plan on getting started around 10:33. Just another minute or so here. Good morning. Okay, well, we're going to get started. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday morning to join us today for our annual alumni student panel. This is, I'm Jennifer McConnell, and this is literally one of my favorite events of the year. There's three reasons that I love this event so much. One, we get to see our alumni, and it's so lovely to not only get to see them in person this year virtually, but also to see how they're doing and how they're shaping into amazing human beings. Also, this year we're welcoming our current students. And what's great about that this year is that we get to see the developmental influence of their Montessori education through the continuum. And lastly, I love this event because it is such a great demonstration, both anecdotally and through personal evidence of our portrait of a graduate. If you have not had an opportunity to go to our webpage and check out the About Us section, I highly encourage that you do so and look at our portrait of graduate so that you can see what the possibility of your students look like going through an MCH education through 8th grade. So today we're going to be together for about an hour and a half. And the first hour is going to be moderated with a moderator and who will be guiding our panelists through some pre-developed questions. We took questions that we have heard from the audience over the last several years to shape today's event since it's in a webinar format. The last half an hour will be open to Q&A through the Q&A feature. So during the event, feel free, if you have some follow-up questions, to go ahead and use the Q&A feature. And when we get to the last half an hour of today, we'll start going through those questions and asking our panelists those questions. First, I would like to start off with some introductions. And I'm going to ask our panelists to start by first telling us what their first name is, and what their age is, what their current grade level is, and or if they're in college, what level they're at. And one thing that they loved about their Montessori education or about MCH. So we'll shift to our panelists now.
And let's start just at the top left of my screen, which is Lou.
I'm Lou. My pronouns are they, them. I am in 8th grade. I think my favorite memory or like thing from MCH is being able to be yourself and be completely open with everybody around you.
And then we have Claire. You're next on my screen, Claire.
My name is Claire. I am in 8th grade. One of my favorite things at MCH is all the animals, and in my classroom we're able to take care of all of them, which is really nice. And also that we are all able to be ourselves in the
Thanks, Claire. Halima, I know we're gonna chat with you specifically in a few minutes, so I'm skipping over you for right now, just temporarily. And Alex, you're the next one on my screen.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I identify as she, her. I've been at MCH for 9 years. I'm in 7th grade. And my favorite thing about MCH is the sense of family and community there.
Thanks, Alex. Sawyer, you're the next person on my screen.
My name is Sawyer. I'm 9 and I'm in 3rd grade. One of my favorite things are our connection with nature and this community.
Thanks, Sawyer. Cicely, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cicely. I'm technically a junior in college because I did a year running start. And one of my favorite things about MCH is I really got a lot of good people who have like stayed with me even through my graduation. So I found a lot of good people who mean a lot to me through MCH. And I don't think I would have found that if I didn't go.
Thanks, Cicely. Sophie, you're next.
My name is Sophie. I am in 6th grade, and one of my favorite things about MCH is the sense of community, and I love to do projects, so that's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Sophie. Natalie.
My name's Natalie. I'm 20 years old. I'm in my 2nd year at university, and one of my favorite things about MCH were the end of the year passion projects that we got to do.
Thanks. Duncan, you're next.
My name's Duncan, as previously stated. I'm he, him. And my favorite thing, I'm a junior, not junior, senior in high school. Wow, thought I could do better than this. I'm a senior in high school. And my favorite things about MCH were the community, mostly because, well, it's a great community, and the diversity, both in gender and sexuality and identity, but also race. And he get exposed to a bunch of different groups and perspectives, which is, really useful.
Thanks, Duncan. Adib, would you introduce yourself to us?
My name is Adib. I am 8 years old and I'm in 3rd grade. My favorite thing about MCH is the animals, the nature, and like the people. They're very nice and they're diverse, and I think that that's very welcoming for me.
Thanks, Adib. Miss Jen, back to you.
Sorry there, I had to unmute for a moment. All right, and now I would like to introduce or have our moderator introduce herself. Halima, can you share a little bit about the things that we asked our panelists to share, and then add just a little bit more about where you are in your college experience right now and what's in store for your future?
Well, thank you, Miss Jen. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this panel, especially in the online format. I know everyone is probably exhausted from staring at their screens and being on Zoom all day, but thank you for being here, and I hope everybody gets something out of today's discussion. As Ms. Jen said, my name is Halima. I graduated from MCH in 6th grade, and I think that was in 2013. I was 12 back then. I'm now 20 years old, and I'm a sophomore at Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, and I'm majoring in political science. And I just got this news a week ago, actually. I just was accepted into the University of Oxford. So I will be studying political science and human rights law at Oxford next year. which is very exciting. and it's also cool that I got that news so quickly, so I was able to share it today. But doing this panel actually means a lot to me because I actually draw from my experience at MCH quite a bit, even like as an adult. Like I'm probably one of the only people that talks about elementary school as often as I do. And I often share stories with my roommate about my time at MCH. And she mentioned to me one time, she said she wants to send her kids to a Montessori school because she thinks I'm so well adjusted. And you can imagine my roommate has seen the best and worst of me. So I don't know. And I think Natalie mentioned this in her introduction, I often think about the passion projects that we did in elementary school, which for anyone who doesn't know, we had to choose a topic and then research it and write a paper, create a presentation, and then present it in front of teachers and parents. And so my first experience public speaking was when I was 6 years old, doing a presentation on snails and presenting it to parents and teachers. And I was so nervous, but now public speaking is actually a skill that I have honed in on. And like, doing a panel like this, moderating, I would never have been able to do it if not for all the practice I had doing public speaking. So that's just something that I attribute to my education at MCH. But anyways, that's a little bit about me. The way that things are going to work today is that I will be asking our alumni and our current students some questions that were pre-planned, they were pre-written. And I've put them in a little order and I'll just ask the questions and we'll take it from there. So that will be about an hour long. And then the Q&A portion will be led by Miss Nicole, and that's when the audience can ask their questions. So I think we can get started if that's okay with everyone. I'll just get right into it. I wanted to start by asking, all of the panelists, I think it's a good sort of base or a good start to ask everybody, what is something that you would attribute to your Montessori education? What's something that you value about having gone to a Montessori school that you think you wouldn't have picked up on at a different school? And it's something that you use throughout your educational career. Anyone can answer that.
I'd say it's more of like a value, which is a love of learning, which is, it's valuable because it, gives a passion for learning, which is obviously useful in school because, it makes it so it's not drudgery, it's enjoyable, and it helps you approach the world with a lot more interest and less apathy. And I think we could all use less apathy these days.
Thank you, Duncan.
Go ahead, Alex.
I'd probably say my creativity. Montessori really taught me to explore any ideas I had, draw them out with mind maps and all sorts of things, share them with people. And that's really important to me, and it kind of made me me.
Thank you.
Lou?
I think it's really my ability to ask for help, because that's something that I've learned a lot about at MCH. The asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of like being kind of vulnerable, like you're willing to ask for help. So I think I wouldn't have learned that at another school.
Cicely?
I definitely would say my source of identity was kind of pushed by MCH, just understanding like what I wanted to do and also understanding that what I want to do is something that I should really be passionate about. Like I just recently switched my whole major because of one class that I did because I found out that I had more passion about something. So really understanding myself and being able to take time to understand myself has been like a great value that I've seen through many times that I've been in school.
That's great. Adib, you have you want to contribute? I see your hand raised.
So one of the things that I don't think that I could usually get at a different school is Green Team with Miss Jessie, because I just love how positive she is and how amazingly she deals with the earth. And I think that I want to be able to find that kind of love and attention at a different school.
Thank you, Adib. Natalie?
For me, I think all of this, but then also this like love of nature and this desire to do better for the earth. Like most of my, happiest memories are us playing outside at MCH and gardening with Miss Catherine. And it's just, I want to be able to make a world where more kids can do what I did. And so it's really inspired this like climate justice piece for me.
That's great. Claire?
One of the things that I think of it is with the math, like the math that we do at the school is different than I would have done if I'd gone somewhere else, because you go by step, and then you can go at your own pace at it, which is nice. And then also the connection to nature, which is a good thing, because so that way you care about nature.
Thanks, Claire. Sawyer?
I also really enjoy, like, I think green team also, because we started the week before last week, and the day like after we finished green team, me and one of my friends went up and picked up a lot of trash. And I think that if I got into a different school, I probably wouldn't have felt the same connection with nature. And also I really also like the reading that we can do. Like when I was in second grade, I joined the Turquesa Lit Books, and that was like really fun, like being able to record like the writing that I think we usually would have done like when we were a lot older.
Thanks, Sawyer. Sophie?
The ability to learn a bunch of different things. I've never been to a school that isn't Montessori, but I'm pretty sure you are not really given a chance to get your own ideas into work. So that's nice to have.
Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you guys for all those answers. That was really great. And I think a few of you mentioned this in your answers as well just now, that one of the most important parts of our education is the teachers and the relationships that we build with our teachers. And I think it's a unique thing at MCH that you're able to have a close and important relationship with your teachers that helps your education. And, this is true all the way through college. I found especially important in college that it's important to build good relationships with professors who can help you later with your major, internships, or whatever. And so I firstly want to ask the alumni on this panel, how did your relationships with teachers at MCH help you navigate the world of teachers in bigger or non-Montessori schools? Yeah, Alex.
So being in the community, sorry, that's my dog. Being in the community for so long, the teachers start to feel like kind of like your family or your friends, and you can relate to them, and that makes it, I think Lou mentioned this, easier to come to them and ask for help. Because Lou, you said this again, it's really vulnerable. But once you get to know that they're kind and caring and they don't judge you, then it's really easy to come to them for help, and that's really important.
Yeah, Lou.
I think that my relationship with teachers, I've known several teachers outside of school and inside of school as well. But I think that my relationship with all my teachers has been like really close, kind of parental in a way. They kind of guide me through what I need to know. And then sometimes they have actually been my parents, but in other times they've not been my parents, but just have felt like that. And they help create the feeling of family at MCH. Like I can, obviously before COVID, if I was feeling down, like my teacher would give me a hug or would talk to me, or feel like if I was upset, I could go on the walk with them, kind of talk it out. And I think that's what's really awesome about MCH.
Natalie.
I think what I've done is, you know, I go to a really big university now, and there's just so many teachers and they have so many students, it's hard to get that personal connection. So what I found I'm doing is I'm kind of evaluating them on the basis, is this like Miss Nicole? Like, does she seem to care? Does she seem excited about what she's teaching? You know, is this someone who I feel like I could approach? And even if I don't feel like I can approach them, like I try it at least once, because like, you know what, this person could be really passionate and just want someone to come and ask them for help. So I look for people like Miss Nicole now.
That's the Miss Nicole test. Duncan.
For me, it's sort of it humanized teachers, for lack of a better word. Like, they're people. You can just talk to them. There's nothing scary about talking to a teacher, right? It has to break through that barrier at a Montessori school, especially MCH. So breaking through that barrier when you're in, you know, third grade makes it way easier to talk to your teachers in, you know, junior year, or to your professors in college, right? Because there's not that fear anymore.
Right. I'm going to take Cicely, and then I have another question. Cicely.
Okay, I'll be quick. Okay. Mine's kind of building on what Duncan was saying. I was just thinking that, like, the value of teachers to me really changed. I mean, I spent like a bunch of mornings with Miss Nicole, so that's probably the closest I've ever been to a teacher. But I feel like seeing passion in teachers is really what I look for, and that really gives passion to me. And I feel like a lot of people don't have that, because when I can tell that a teacher cares about what they're teaching about, it makes me care about it. And I feel like a lot of people are just there to take the class, but for me, I'm kind of like, no, this could be a passion that I could be into. This is something that I could remember forever. So I think the value of teachers really came from MCH.
Thank you. That's a good point as well. And I think my next question kind of touches on what Duncan just said earlier. I was wondering, in what ways do you think that MCH helped you advocate for yourself with teachers and at school? I think this is touching on what Duncan said about breaking that barrier with your teachers, but how has MCH kind of helped you learn how to advocate for yourself?
Well, I'll go again, which is, for me, it's that teachers are understanding, right? And teachers, with very few exceptions, want the best for their students, right? And are willing to listen to you and be understanding and kind, right? No, that's it.
And Duncan, not to put you on the spot, but do you think that the close relationship you built with teachers at MCH kind of helped you realize that you had a little bit more confidence talking to your teachers in other schools?
Yeah, by having the same teacher for 6 years, right? You kind of realize they actually want to help, right? And even if you really like a teacher in a non-Montessori school, you have them for 4 months to a year, right? Like, you don't have them for long, so it's hard to kind of build that relationship and realize that. But at a Montessori school, you have the luxury of being able to have that long-term relationship and learn a lot more about teachers and why they teach, which I think helps gives insight.
Thank you. Sawyer?
I also think, like, since we get to be like with the same teacher for 3 years, that helps build a relationship, and like a really close one. Like, they're like your friend, like your grown-up friend.
Yeah. Lou?
I think that MCH has helped me advocate for others outside of MCH. So like on my soccer team or in the group that I'm in. And I think that I know what to do when I feel like enough is enough. And like if somebody's pushing my boundaries or if they are like annoying me, I can stand up to them. I can be like, stop. I think I wouldn't have learned that any other place apart from MCH.
Yeah. Cicely?
I think a lot of my confidence, specifically like in the classroom, came from MCH. Like when I walk into a classroom, I know that I am capable of doing the things that I'm being taught. So just having that understanding that I'm capable and having that confidence that I got from just having a teacher who always says that you are capable, really just, it follows you throughout all of college.
Yeah, for sure. Natalie?
So going off of Lou's point, my like comfort with going to ask teachers for help wasn't always linear. You know, going to high school is kind of hard. But I think what I got from MCH was this like, you know, it's like my friends would be like, "Oh no, I can't go ask the teacher. It'd be embarrassing." And I'm like, "What do you mean? That's what they're there for. Like they're always here to help. Go and ask if you need it." So you know, it took a bit for me to actually take that advice myself, but also it was in the back of my head where it's like, no, this is what you should be doing. You can do it.
Right. Okay, Alex, why don't you wrap it up for us?
Well, in middle school specifically, but also this is taught in like Morato and Turquesa briefly, but we're learning about some young people that are making changes, Greta Thunberg, Amanda Gorman, and Mark, our teacher specifically says like, you guys are almost this old, see these people doing these great things, you can do them too. That's really important to know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think to be a good advocate for yourself and for other people, and to feel comfortable sort of adapting to bigger environments with a lot more people, confidence is a really important part of that. I think Natalie sort of touched on that a little bit in her answer just now. And I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but the only reason I'm able to public speak and, you know, talk on a panel like this is so much of because of what I learned at MCH. So I wanted to ask our alumni first and current students, if you want to pitch in, if you have ideas as well, that's completely fine. Has MCH had an impact on your confidence, and perhaps can you speak about how your own identity and sense of self compares to people you've met from other schools and other communities?
I
Oh. Okay, Natalie.
I don't really know, so.
All right, Natalie.
Sorry. Hi. Yes. So lots of different ways, but one big thing that I've noticed recently, my university is having a lot of cheating scandals with online university. And one thing that I've noticed about myself is like, why are you cheating? You're cheating yourself out of an education. So I came out of MCH, and it was with me in middle school and high school too, where it's like, no, I'm not going to take the easy way out. Like I'm going to show what I know, and I'm going to work to know more. Like I'm not going to cheat myself out of this. I have this value for myself to not cheat, which is a big thing, I think, especially in university and online classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lou.
I think like from when I first arrived at MCH, which was like when I was 3 months old, I've grown a lot and my identity has grown. And I think MCH has really helped me become who I am today. Like I wouldn't have felt comfortable like being myself at like a public school probably. It would have been a lot harder for me to come out and be myself. So I think at MCH it's really been they've been super helpful with that.
Yeah. Sophie.
I feel like I got enough confidence to show other people who don't go to MCH that they can be friends with other people and not say things that make them feel uncomfortable about their own selves. I have a few friends that don't go to MCH, and they as they go through being a teenager, they tend to be not quite so kind to each other, and I try and help them get through that. So yeah.
Yeah. Duncan.
I think it helps just give you a stronger sense of identity. Just like no matter what it is, it's stronger. And as a part of that, you feel less of a need to prove yourself to others, right? Or make yourself like make yourself fit in, because you don't need to change who you are to make people like you, right? Because you can find people who will like you for who you are, because I mean, it's not my response. Like, it builds a stronger sense of self, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm. So going off of Duncan's point, do you think that this sense of self-identity or your confidence has prompted you to take leadership opportunities or try something new in other schools, or just in your life? Like, do you think you guys have become more leaders or people who tried new things? Yeah, Alex.
Well, I'm come from a current student. We do leadership things all the time, especially in middle school. You can be the facilitator for the meetings and state what happens next, like music, sharing, all sorts of stuff. And also you can lead discussions, just simple ways. There's a lot of opportunities in the classroom to lead everyone and have fun.
Thank you. Any others? Okay.
Natalie has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Natalie.
I wouldn't say so much like leadership isn't as big of a thing for me, but I do find that teamwork is bigger for me, where it's not, I don't like being at the head of a project and making sure everyone's doing their own thing. I like collaborating more and having everyone kind of have this same amount of control in a project or a group setting.
Right. That's a really good point. And I think that Natalie sort of touches on this other really important aspect of a Montessori education, which is working together with other people, which is a really important skill, something you will need for the rest of your life. Group projects can be very stressful. But it's good to have fundamental skills in working with other people and collaborating. So this is a question that anybody can answer. What experiences at MCH helped your approach to projects and collaborations, or what have you learned about working with other people? Yeah, Lou.
I think I'm a natural leader and I really enjoy leading. So MCH has kind of taught me to step back and let other people take the lead as well. Step back and like not take over a whole meeting, let other people speak and have like an equal amount of time, because that can be hard for me sometimes because I love getting my ideas out there. So I think MCH has really helped me let others lead.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same way, Lou, by the way. Alex.
I think especially this year, I'm learning how to schedule meetings, which is a difficult skill, and I'm still not very good at it, but it's really important, like I said, especially this year. Yeah.
Thank you. Cicely.
I recently took a class that was about segregation in the United States and in education specifically. And my teacher, she kind of changed how we looked at school because of how we're online and everything. And she taught us something called step up, step back. And it reminded me of stuff that I learned at MCH, just learning when to step up and share your ideas, but also learning when to step back and let other people speak. And I thought about that saying and how it really connected to stuff that we learned at MCH too. And so you see it all the way through college. A lot of the ideas I still experience through. Yeah.
Yeah. Sawyer.
I didn't really get to do this much this year. But I know last year when I was in second grade, like doing like for passion projects, like people worked together like for them. And some like people like I know like some people like when they wanted to help someone like we're just like kind of like giving them tons of ideas and not really letting them speak about their own project. But But then I know that like that they figured it out and like got it like could do it by themselves, like not by themselves, but like being able to like do it to like speak together, like sharing ideas and that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be shifting gears a little bit, if that's okay with everyone. As I mentioned before, I'm a political science major and I'm specifically studying social justice and human rights. And so I have conversations like this all the time in my classes. And I think it's really important to talk about community engagement and advocacy on a greater scale outside of the MCH community or our school communities. So the next few questions I think are directed at everybody because I think that these questions are very relevant to today and something that I think everybody can speak on a little bit. So sort of thinking about social justice, peace education, diversity, inclusion, and equity, can you tell us about a time after you left MCH for alumni, or maybe a time at MCH for current students, when you found yourself in the position to advocate for others, yourself, or for the greater world around you? It's kind of a complicated question. I'll give everyone a second to think about it. Yeah.
Cicely?
I think I recently understood that, fighting for equity for people, I wanted that to be my job. I used to be a biology major, but just recently I took one class. I took like a feminism class. I took like a segregation class, a bunch of classes like that, like equity in the US. And I realized that, fighting for equity was what I wanted to do. So I completely changed my major into elementary education so I can centrally work with kids of lower class to kind of fight against either segregation in schools or inequalities that happen to minorities. And I wanted to be direct with that. So I feel like I made it my whole major. So I definitely care about it.
Thank you. Adib.
Recently, not technically recently, but I was able to interview some people in my family, and I was also able to put some of my poems and writing in the school newspaper like a year or so ago, a while back. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Lou.
I think that, I guess this kind of goes back to what I was saying about advocacy, but when like I've noticed somebody who's kind of being left out or kind of being put down or not really getting a voice, I think I've learned how to step in and make sure that everybody is getting an equal say and being able to say what they need.
Great. Adib, did you still have your hand raised from last time, or? Okay. I think that was an accidental hand raise. Duncan.
I feel like the education we got at MCH gives a good sense for truth and justice. Right? It gives a very good sense for when something is fair or unfair or just or unjust. Right? So you can help identify what that issue is in the first place, right? And that, because you can't fix something if you can't identify it, right?
Natalie.
I think MCH really instilled this idea of giving back to the community that I've been carrying with me for a while. I remember, I think I remember, it's very vague, but like doing food drives and stuff and toy drives for local Seattle organizations. And I just remember how good it felt to be part of something a little bit bigger than me. And, that's just something I've been wanting to continue. So, I'm applying for jobs at my school's equity and inclusion office and assault survivor units. And it's just, being able to do something that's bigger than myself, I'm finding really rewarding. It's just like, I want to be able to do something like that for the rest of my life. Knowing that I can make a difference, it's wonderful.
Right. That's a really good point. So this is kind of a question for everyone. Do you feel like that there is an importance, or that it is important to be an advocate for others, or for people who can't advocate for themselves? Lou.
I think it's really important to speak for others who might not have as much power in society. Like, I am white and I want to be, and I am anti-racist, so I want to like bring up people of color who don't have as much power in society because they are not white. So I think it's really important to speak for people who have less of a voice than you do.
Thank you. Okay. This is a bit in a similar vein. I think at MCH, we tend to talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion in our conversations and, lessons and in classes. And I think it's really valuable to start having these discussions, even at a young age, because then you continue to have those discussions. And I think this is something that our panelists have, alluded to. Do you find yourself welcoming differences among people, more so than others maybe, or more noticeable than others? And if so, how did you learn that? Yeah, maybe that's a little bit of a thinker. Alex.
I think in history lessons, we're really taught about unfairness in history, especially slavery, all sorts of things. We're learning about the indigenous people here and that all of that. And it's really being brought ahead that this is not okay. It was not okay. Everyone deserves the same rights. We're all human. So yeah, learning the true history, and yeah, it's really important.
Thank you. Lou.
I think that I think when I go to public school, I might be kind of disappointed by the lack of diversity or the lack of like differences, because I have grown to love differences and like accept everybody because they are accepting me. And I think that yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the differences are in like acceptance when they get to high school, because there'll be a totally different culture probably than MCH.
Right. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that, Halima?
Of course.
I'm interested in folks who have gone from MCH to bigger schools, obviously our alumni. What has it been like for you to adapt to that huge change in culture and size? And that's a really big shift. And as Lou is preparing to go to East Lake High School next year, which has so many people, thousands, as opposed to 60 or 70 elementary and middle school students. It would be really interesting to know what it was like for you to shift from the small community to a larger group.
Cicely.
It definitely took some time. I think I haven't really been in a classroom setting where we talk about issues that I care about for a while until recently. And I think that's the biggest change, is when you first go into public school, everything is already set up. The curriculum is there. They teach you what they need to, and then you're like, okay, bye. And I think that was a part that was really shocking to me when I first went to public school, when there was a bunch of people. But I do think at the University of Washington, I have been able to join classes, and once you're able to pick what you want to go into and look at, it does feel like MCH, because you're learning about stuff that you're passionate about, and you do get to make those connections with your teachers. And I think that's when I kind of started feeling more at home, was when I was in these classes that I really cared about. But the initial time of like going straight into public school is a little bit overwhelming, because you just kind of feel like you're just another student. And so you really have to put in time to make it your education, which would be like connecting with teachers and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more effort when you're first in like middle school and high school, but once you get to college and you can choose what you want to learn about, it does feel like more like MCH, I think.
Mm-hmm. Duncan.
So for me, I went from MCH to well, less so with my middle school, but my high school is the only high school in the district. So it's like 3,000 or 4,000 people, and everything has this not physically, because it's a public high school, has this sense of everything being very clean and orderly and sterilized, and there's sort of an unwillingness and inability to get into the down and dirty that is sort of needed to learn to kind of learn the truth about the world, right? That, I mean, you can't get with a public school, because a public school teacher does not have the time, right? And like, they have to worry about students and parents who, don't have the same mentality. As the mentality is entirely different, not just from the teachers, but from, like I was saying, the students and the parents. So there's less of a willingness to learn those sort of things. So it just happens less. It's this sort of cycle that you don't see with MCH, where everybody's more open and willing to hear things they might not like to. Right?
Yeah, thank you. Natalie, you had your hand raised. Did you lower it? Saw that.
I was thinking about it. I played it over my head too many times, so I kind of forgot what was happening. I went from MCH to a slightly larger MCH where there were like 50 people in my class. So I really didn't have that same experience that Duncan and Cicely did. But then I went from my 50 size class, and now I'm in a 66,000 university campus. Like, there's a lot of people. And so Cicely's point of, you need to put effort into making it your education and finding like your group of people. It's the same thing with university. If you haven't had that, well, I think even if you do have a public school experience, like, you need to work to make it yours. I think, if that makes sense. Like, it isn't just a one-time thing. Like, it's a ongoing process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot. Well, this is, I have a few questions that is talking about. I think Cicely mentioned this a little bit in one of her answers, sort of thinking about like how you become passionate about different things, how you figure out not necessarily what you want to do, like your career, but just what you're interested in and what you want to pursue, especially in college when you have so many options to study whatever you want. I think that developing a sense of what you're passionate about early on really helps you then when you're in college and you have to make a million decisions about your major and what you want to study. So I have some questions for alumni. What are you passionate about now? And this is why I said Cicely kind of already answered this, but what are you passionate about now? And how do you feed that passion and nurture that curiosity? Yeah, Cicely.
I think I put a lot of value into moments. I'm like that person who like watches a movie and then thinks about it for like 3 days, how everything connected. And I feel like a lot of it is how I kind of found my passion, is because I had those moments of like being overwhelmed by something and being like, oh wait, this is actually so cool. I want to kind of centralize my thoughts about it. And I think like the BLM movement, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all of that stuff really inspired me to get more hands-on when it comes to inequities and how I, as a teacher, a future teacher, can really take care of that. So I think just having value, and I really I spend a lot of time reflecting on like everything, so it does kind of help to realize what I hold important in my life. So having value in those moments is important because you find your passion that way.
Yeah, thank you. Duncan.
So I'm passionate about STEM in general, but specifically chemistry. Partially because it's just wildly fascinating, but also because it's a applied way of making parts, like a lot of the world, better, because it's a way of solving problems. And which, you know, there are many problems, not necessarily social, but ecological and global that that you can only really solve with chemistry, right? So I kind of think that feeds back into the being aware of the environment and the world around you with MCH, but I feed that by just learning about it, right? I feed my interest in general, but especially in STEM and chemistry by learning in my free time, right? And seeking out new knowledge.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Natalie?
Kind of off of Duncan's point of seeking new knowledge, I think finding a passion is just through exploration. Like I thoroughly enjoy just walking around museums and just like going, oh, look at this, like it's all so cool. And then it's also exciting to start seeing all the little connections and all the different ways of knowing. And so just being able to explore all of like what we already know and thinking, I wonder how this all connects. That's how I really started to get into, I'm going to be studying human geography and just looking at all of the different ways that different social societies and different, you know, systems work together.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know that, you know, my interest in, you know, human rights and social justice definitely comes from all of the discussions that I had with Miss Nicole in the classroom about, you know, equity and inclusion. And again, they weren't really like forced discussions. We weren't forced to discuss, you know, these issues. We were interested in it. And I think that that's what sort of fostered my own interest in, you know, politics and political science. So this is a question for you all and current students, if you want to pitch in as well, if you have an answer to this. Can you think of any experiences at MCH that helped you spark your current passions? Yeah, Alex.
So one of the big philosophies at MCH is that you should help someone if you know something they don't. Help your peers, teach them a lesson. That sounded more, like teach them something you know that they don't. And before I leave to go to school, my mom says, learn something, teach something, and have fun. And I feel like that's going to stick with me for forever. And it's really important to me to help people and teach them what I know.
Yeah. Lou.
I think that Mark does an amazing job of this. We often have impromptu discussions where like we'll just start talking and then it'll go from like bread to like fighter jets, and we don't know how it got between those two. But I think that we recently had a discussion about like trans rights and different states that are banning trans athletes playing in sports, and that sparked my interest in that. And then like I'm doing more research now and I'm learning a lot more, and I think that all those impromptu discussions that we have really help me like spark my interest and keep me entertained.
Yeah. Claire.
Like the animals at MCH, like taking care of them and stuff, sparked for a passion for me to when I am able and old enough to volunteer at an animal rescue somewhere. And also like hoping to take some veterinarian classes in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Duncan?
For me, it's it's specific lessons, which is, you know, in first, second, and third grade where they go, okay, here's how the universe started, right? Here's how they don't talk down to you, right? Yeah. And they have this sort of like attitude of you should just learn the truth, right? And it has that learning isn't like this big scary thing. It's just something you do.
Right.
Right. And the specific things they approach that with, especially, you know, science, helped me go, wow, this is super cool. I want to study this. But generally, they help instill all sorts of passions by not making learning this big, scary, pretentious thing. It's just learning.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Duncan. I'm keeping an eye on the time. Miss Nicole, do you know how much time we have left?
Well, we have about 5 minutes before we said we'd start our Q&A. If any participants or attendees want to start asking questions in the Q&A, now is a good time to do that. So we have a couple more, we have 3 or 4 more minutes to continue our discussion.
Okay. Well, this is, changing the topic a little bit, but it's sort of in the same vein of considering, our place in the world beyond MCH. And it's something that I think you all have mentioned a little bit in your answers. We all know that MCH is unique with a campus and a curriculum that's immersed in nature and gardening and animals. We all grew up around animals, like whether they were baby chicks or baby goats. And so this is kind of a question for all panelists. Do you have any distinct memories about connecting to nature at MCH? Because it's such a big thing growing up. Yeah, Alex.
I think it was our second visit here after we found it, because I remember we got lost on our way over here. We accidentally didn't turn left. So we got a tour of the campus and we saw all the goats, Big Boy, Snickerdoodle, Cookie, Cream. And I remember being so amazed that you could touch them sometimes. And that was kind of a deal breaker. I mean, it wasn't my decision, it was my parents', but it was kind of a deal breaker for going to the school.
I love that. Yeah, Lou.
I think that going off of the nature part of it, I think that like we usually take an annual trip to Islandwood, and obviously that didn't happen this year, but it's happened in the past. And I have really fond memories. I've got one specific memory of like hiking up. There was a long hike down to the beach and hiking back up that hill with me, Clara, Alex, and Mark. And the whole group had gone ahead, and we had we would get like cookies when we got to the top of it. And everybody else was at the top already, and we were just slowly getting up there, carrying each other's backpacks. It was just like this sense of community, we all have each other's backs, we can all support each other. And then when we got up to the top, we didn't get to stop because the rest of the group had kept going. So it was kind of sad. We had to wait for our cookie when we got back to the lodge, but it was still really fun.
Yeah, I think Islandwood is still some of my fondest memories as well. Sawyer.
I remember we got baby chickens. We got chicks one year, and I remember watching them grow up. That is something that I have a very fond memory of.
Yeah, thank you.
And one of them is this size right now.
You got to watch them grow up. Duncan.
Well, first off, Islandwood was great, and second off, like, oh my god, but there's a very specific memory I have, which I think it was with Nicole or maybe Miss Jessie, of going out into the field, like these swamps behind the field, looking for specific plants so we can look at the plants and learn about those specific plants, right?
I love that. Cicely.
I was gonna say again, Islandwood was like one of my favorite memories. But also like I had a really deep connection with a goat named Dreamer. And and I have a terrible memory. Like Nat knows that I don't remember anything from MCH really, but I'll always remember Dreamer. And I think just having that connection with an animal is so powerful. And obviously nature, Angus getting his boot stuck in the swamp all the time. Like those are memories that you don't get, at regular schools.
Yeah. Natalie.
It was David who got his boot stuck in the swamp, by the way, just saying. I've been working I was working at MCH over the summer as like a summer camp counselor sort of thing. And one of my favorite parts of being outside with the preschool students is doing gardening with Miss Catherine, and she brings them into the little garden boxes and they get their hands dirty. And then when the vegetables start coming up, they get to try them and they bite them. And the kids who haven't tried them yet, I love seeing their faces kind of go, and then they like start eating it more. And it's really exciting to see them interact with nature in this way and be like, whoa, I kind of helped grow that thing. That's really cool. That's one of my favorite parts of MCH nature stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Duncan, did you want to add one last thing? I saw your hand is raised. No, okay.
Halima, can I just jump in to say, I got a message that the Q&A might not be working for everybody. So if anybody has a question that they want to put in the chat, any of our attendees, go ahead and use the chat or the Q&A. And right now, I think we're just cooking along on our conversation and questions are not pouring in. So Halima, if you just want to keep going, and I'll let you know if we get a good question we want to wrestle with.
Okay, of course. Yeah, because I really wanted to ask this question, because I think we all have a lot of discussions and think a lot about, our place on the earth and, global warming, climate change, all these really big issues that, our generation's going to have to start thinking about soon. So I want to know, have the ways in which, MCH emphasizes the importance of nature and an environmental education changed your perception about your place and responsibility to the earth? How did it influence your connection to the natural world? Like, I have memories of going on litter walks with Miss Jessie, and that kind of, started that interest for me of like, oh, we have to protect the earth. It's not just here to serve us. And I see everyone's raising their hand. Okay, Sawyer.
Pulling ivy. At Green Team, we pulled like a lot of ivy, and that was that made me feel good, like really good. That I was like, because the ivy, the English ivy, like it was growing on like trees, and a few had already like fallen down. And I remember in summer, Lou and Gavin and Vina, they joined a competition, and their team was the invasive ivy squad. And that during then we also pulled a lot of ivy, and I really enjoyed doing that.
Thank you. Lou.
I think that really last year was when I really started really thinking about the environment, because then there was the R Echo Challenge, and I started, me and my team, we decided to focus on ivy, like Sawyer said, because it's such a big thing. And once we got accepted into the top 10, it was like something in my brain just turned on, and we just got a lot of ivy cleared, and we got a lot of work done. And it felt really good. Like, by the time we were presenting our project, I felt like I had made an impact on MCH. Like, I went every day to visit a tree that I'd saved from ivy, and it felt like a friend to me, because I was like, I saved your life. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah. Alex.
After so much hands-on with nature trail, Islandwood, all sorts of stuff, it gave me a long-lasting love for nature in general. Probably fed into my gardening hobby. And then when I got the lesson from Miss Jessie in my 6th year, I think, about climate change and greenhouse gases and all that, it really invigorated me to learn more about it and fight for the planet.
Yeah. Thank you. Natalie.
I've also been getting more into climate change issues and stuff. It's a big part of most of my classes right now. I just have this vivid memory of, oh my God, I don't even remember when it was, but we did a classroom-wide zero waste lunch day. And so everyone came in and we had all of our lunches in Tupperware containers, and we had no plastic straws or anything. And I remember the one kid who did not participate, and we were very upset with him. But I remember it's after that, it's oh, we got a compost bin at home, we're starting our recycling. It's little actions from MCH that then started to add up. And I'm like, oh yes, I do make a difference, even if it's really tiny. It's lovely.
Yeah, for sure. Duncan.
I think because of the nature trail, Islandwood, the back before it was closed, the field and the swamps and areas surrounding that, it sort of gave this sense that this connection to nature and this appreciation for natural beauty that for me made me realize, yes, we're the sort of the dominant controlling species on Earth. That gives us a responsibility to take care of the Earth, right? Not just because, ooh, it'll be uncomfortable for us, but also because there is nature has a right to sustain itself and a right to stay around, right? Like
Mm.
beyond like humans imagining it, it's just our responsibility to go through with making sure that happens.
Right. Thank you. Sawyer, did you still have your hand raised from before? Okay. Yeah.
We did get a couple of questions. Can we do them now, or does it interrupt your flow?
No, you're all good.
So one of them, it takes us in kind of a different direction. One of our attendees wants to know, did or do any of you play sports? If so, what? Where did you play? I'm going to go ahead and shoot this question right on over to Lou, first thing. And then
I play soccer. I've also played softball and baseball and basketball in the past. Yeah. I think that being like having a full recess, like a 30-minute, sometimes an hour now that we're eating lunch outside, and because of COVID, we have to spend the whole like hour outside. I think being able to move around, interact with my fellow students, like play pickleball against them or play a game of basketball or soccer or whatever it is. We used to play hockey. And whatever that is, it adds like a sense of teamwork. And also I know that there's another kid in my class. We both play sports, and there's a sense of competition between all three of us actually. And it's like a good sense of competition. So I think that being able to play outside and like go head to head in like a game of basketball or whatever helps me get my energy out.
Sophie.
I used to play soccer, but what's really important is playground time tends to have a lot of sports involved. We sometimes play hockey or soccer or things Lou mentioned, and that's important to a lot of people, including me.
Thanks, Sophie. Sawyer?
I used to play soccer. I don't play it. I haven't played it for a while because of COVID, but I played it on my local league. Also at school, when we were some people went to school at home at school when a lot of kids were doing school at home, like in like December and November, December, and January, and we played a day after that, like we played hockey. We were playing with one person from another cohort, so they had to like be the goalie and like stay away from everyone. But yeah, that happened. And also when we came back to school, we played a little bit of hockey also.
Thanks. Alex.
Anyone who knows me knows I'm not really the sporty type, but so I don't play a specific sport. But I actually, during playground time or PE, I actually found I really, really liked playing like pickleball or hockey with everyone, and I was really excited about it. And I didn't really think that would happen, but I think I really enjoyed just hanging out with everyone, especially street hockey. I think we played that for like every day for like 3 months in a row, and it was really fun.
All right. Lou, do you have one more thing to add before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, it's just a really quick thing. I think that when we went to stage 1, I formed like all the people that had like staff kids or whatever, they were coming in to be in person, and it was like one giant family. And I got to play lots of fun, like make-believe games with them, as well as sports and like basketball and stuff. And that was also really fun.
Thanks. Let's see. Here's a question that takes us in another direction. It feels like an important one right now. The question is, how do you think going through the pandemic will shape your education and view of the world in the future? And if MCH if you're at MCH right now, has it been important to experienced this at MCH? I hope that question makes sense. I think I didn't say it as articulately as the question asker did. But it's all about the pandemic in the future. Go ahead, Alex.
I didn't realize how much I liked being around people until that got taken away from me. Yeah, and like I said earlier, scheduling meetings has become one of the skills I am learning, which is nice, but yeah, it's still kind of lonely sometimes.
Yeah. Duncan?
I've realized how nice it is to not be around the same 3 or 4 people 24 hours a day for about 5 months. It's also given me a new appreciation for teachers who have to somehow teach. Teachers in public schools already don't have enough time. Now they have shorter classes where they can't guarantee everybody's engaged, right? So it's given me a newfound respect for teachers and people in general who now have to, do what they would normally do, but under tougher conditions.
Thanks. Cicely?
I feel like MCH really made me value learning with other people, and that feeling is kind of gone now. And I feel like I've seen that the most. And even though I'm like in a classroom full of people in a college classroom, I forget how much I value just being with people and learning things together. Like most of me and Kimi's relationship is just learning things together. And I feel like if we were just learning through a screen, it wouldn't have been the same. We wouldn't have the same connection, you know?
Mm-hmm. Halima?
This is kind of similar to what Cicely just said, but I think MCH kind of fostered, this need in me to go above and beyond, what teachers expect, like in the sense that, it's really easy with online school to just turn your video off, mute yourself, let the lecture go by, and then just like, okay, close your computer, you're done. But I always try to, challenge myself to participate, even if I don't know what's going on, even if I'm tired, and I don't want to look at my screen anymore. I really try to put in the same kind of effort into my online classes that I would if it was a real class. And I think that need or that drive in me comes from being at MCH, where we were always pushed to challenge ourselves. We were always pushed to, go above and beyond. Don't just do what's expected of you, actually pursue what you want to pursue. And right now I'm studying exactly what I want to study. So my classes are interesting. I actually care about what I'm learning. So that makes it easier. But, it's just important to remember that, your education is really important, and what you put in is what you're going to get out of it. Yeah.
Thanks. Sophie?
I feel like we did a lot when the pandemic wasn't here, but I feel like the pandemic really will affect our next few years when the pandemic's over. But I also think it'll affect it in a good way, because I think we learned a few things from being at school at home or school in person with masks on and social distancing. I think we learned enough that we will be able to come back to school in a normal way that also will make people's education better.
Thank you. Natalie?
I think a big thing that all of us are learning right now, because we're learning at home, is learning how to have fun by yourself, like learning how to be alone. And for me, that's been something that's really difficult. I really miss seeing people and just talking, but I think it is important that, right now we are getting new hobbies. We're learning more about ourselves and what we need to feel happy and healthy. So there are some positives to come out of this, like Sophie said, but it's kind of a downer.
Thank you. Sawyer?
I kind of going off of what Sophie said. Like I think we have learned quite a bit. Like for the next seasons, like we're wearing masks like in flu season, like and like social distancing. Like that I think will like really help with not getting the flu. Like we'll have less flu cases.
Thanks for bringing that up. Silver linings are really important right now. Lou?
I think the pandemic has really opened my eyes to the need for staying connected. Like I'm not doing school at home, I'm doing it on campus. So I know I have like everyday interactions with lots of people. But for the people who are doing school at home, I know it's so important for you guys to feel connected to what's happening on campus and to what's happening with like the greater population of people. So like teamsing every day. I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, I called with my friends almost every day just to stay in touch and just to see other people's faces. And I think that is really important.
Thank you. Duncan?
It's just another silver lining. I think we've realized how absolutely disgusting our respiratory systems are, and like how it's important to be aware of that. Like, one thing I hope it doesn't change is the expectation that if you're in a very confined space with other people, you wear a mask, right? Like, wearing a mask on a train or a plane should be a normal expectation, and I feel like the pandemic has created a greater awareness for public health and how diseases spread, which we just, unless you were an epidemiologist, you just wouldn't even be cognizant of.
Nice. Thank you. Cicely?
Kind of building off what Duncan was saying, but just that like understanding of health for everybody. I feel like I didn't really realize how gross humans are until the pandemic. Like, I think about how at work, I've been working throughout the whole pandemic, and when they told me to wear a mask, I wore a mask. When they told me to double mask, I double masked. Like, and I can't imagine me at work not having a mask anymore because I'm talking to people like this close to me all the time. And I feel like that realization is good because we're kind of like, okay, we need to do better, and then we can actually make a difference in health. So like Miss Nicole was saying, that silver lining, it's definitely there. And I never got COVID, which I'm very thankful for because I just believed in science and did what I could do to stop it from happening. So yeah.
Thank you. And thanks for believing in science.
Yeah.
I feel like my work has been worth something.
Exactly. We believe in science.
Ooh, Halima?
I was just going to add on to Cicely's point by saying this entire pandemic, we've had to take into account other people other than ourselves. You know, there is no way that you can be selfish right now and just think about your own needs or your own wants. You have to think about, you know, wearing a mask is not just going to protect me, it's going to protect other people. Social distancing, this is for other people. Even if you don't think you're going to get super sick from COVID, someone else could. You could give it to someone who could get really sick from you. And so, you know, MCH obviously taught us a lot of skills on, you know, being compassionate and empathetic and, you know, considering other people other than yourself. Obviously, everybody in the world did not go to a Montessori school. And so it's been something we've struggled with, especially in America. And so, you know, you can't afford to be selfish, but not everybody really understands that. And I think all of us here probably do because we all went to Montessori. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love hearing all of you talk about your experiences right now because I hear in everything everybody is saying like this thread of activism, and sometimes it's not a thread, it's like, you know, a rope of activism. Like, we've got climate justice, we've got chemical engineering activism, we've got like like it's all there. Like, you seem really engaged in the world and really empowered to know how important you are and what a big difference you can make through small and large actions. I'm going to be happy after this. I'm going to, when the webinar's over, we can all just go and like bask in the glow of people, which is a nice feeling. Sawyer?
Another silver lining, like one of my friends recently moved, and I wouldn't have been able, like, I probably wouldn't have connected with them that much without the internet. Like, we probably wouldn't have talked for a few months. That's a silver lining for me.
Nice. Thank you. So there's a question that came through that's kind of connected to that. It's the idea of staying in touch with friends from MCH, and what kind of connections you've been able to maintain after you leave MCH, or what kind of connections you think you'll be able to maintain. Does anybody want to share their experience with that? Natalie?
So I have a couple connections. So Himi and I went to the same high school and middle school, so we've stayed friends. Cicely and I, we don't really talk that much, but it's like when we do talk, we just kind of pick up where we left off sort of thing, which is really sweet. And then Duncan, we were working the summer camp seasons a couple times, and it's really nice to just like, with all of my MCH friends, it's just kind of like, oh yes, we stopped talking and now we're talking again, and nothing has really changed. We're still really close and we still have these really lovely shared experiences.
Thank you. Lou?
I think that, like, kind of like what Natalie said, like the summer camp experience of being able to like interact with previous alumni who are coming to work in summer camp, I value that a lot. And I know that like this summer I am going to be an alumni, so I feel like other people probably will value that as well. But like I've been able to stay in touch with like, stay present with like Natalie and Duncan and those people because of summer camp and because like I volunteer there.
Thanks. Cicely?
I think one thing that kind of keeps us connected is just that we were taught how to care for other people. And I feel like that's one thing that I realized that some people don't really know how to do. And in recent events that happened in my life, I knew that everybody who I met here would be there for me and open and caring for my situation. And I feel like a lot of what we learned at MCH is just knowing how to show someone that you value them. And I feel like that's what really keeps us connected, that even if me and Nat don't talk, we know that we still value each other as people. And so even if there's no connection all the time talking, you still have that kind of understanding that you're completely there for each other.
Thank you. Halima?
Yeah, going off of Cicely's point, I think the network aspect of, having people on your side is really important and something that you can only foster at a really small school, and a school like MCH that values the relationships you have with people. And, obviously, like Natalie mentioned this, Natalie and I went to high school together, we went to middle school together, and Cicely is still like one of my best friends. We talk all the time, even though we didn't go to school together, we still communicate all the time, probably because we have a lot of shared experiences from our childhood, but also just because like, I know she's there for me. And that's something that, people are surprised sometimes when they hear, yeah, my best friend and I have known each other since like we were 5 or 6, like we've known each other for like 14, 15 years. And that's like a crazy amount of time. And it's something that you can only get from going to a small school. It's one of the pros of going to a small school. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another question that's completely unrelated to that, but it sounds like it'll be fun to explore. It's about music and music education, and whether you play instruments or what kind of musical experiences. Miss Amy's in the room with me right now, and she just sat up so straight and tall. She's very excited to hear your answers. So let's talk about music. Natalie?
Okay, this is my baby. I love her so much. I started playing flute in grade 6, so the year after I left MCH, and I love it so much. It's a like part of my daily life. I get so much joy from it. And I think a lot of that was Miss Amy, and we wrote songs together and doing all the singing circles. And Miss Nicole had this old little book of folk songs that we used to sing from. And just like having this like fun experience. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have this sort of like creative outlet. And so, music and orchestra. I also do musical theater bands now, which is really fun. But it's just like, it's this daily thing that I love to do. It's wonderful.
That's great. Sawyer.
We started doing something like a jazz band, like not exactly a jazz band, but like we made like a band. Like Ms. Amy put us in different groups, like groups of 3, and then each person got like there was a drum, a cowbell, and sticks, and that is really fun, like making music with those. And it also turned out that the drum was not like each one was there was a drum, a bass, and a piano, and it turned out the drum was not the drum, it was the bass, and that was really interesting when I figured that out. When we figured that out.
Yeah, thank you. That happened recently because Miss Amy was inspired because Wynton Marsalis was the keynote speaker that we all got to see at the American Montessori Society conference recently. And he talked about music and musical groups as ecosystems and balance. Okay. Oh my gosh, I love how many people want to answer this question. Halima.
Well, I hope Miss Amy's listening right now because I can credit all of my love for music, all of that to her. After MCH, I joined choir and I did musical theater. I still do musical theater. You know, like I just had, for some reason, it was just part of our education. It was just part of the Montessori curriculum to learn songs and to sing together. And I wanted to continue that. Like I felt like I needed to continue that. And so joining choir, I was just like way too enthusiastic to be like singing. Like people were like extremely tired, like not wanting to sing, and I'd be the one that's like having a good time. And I definitely get that from MCH. And obviously, like I was looking at some of the questions in the Q&A, and someone asked, did we go to summer camp? And if so, what were our favorite themes? I did in second grade, I did a summer camp with Miss Melissa that was theater. And I'm gonna credit that as the reason I do theater now, because that was so fun. We learned all about theater, we learned about movies, and then we did a like really tiny, like little production of Midsummer Night's Dream. And my senior year, I was in a Midsummer Night's Dream, like for my high school theater. And I just thought like, that's so funny. Like yeah, all my love of art, everything, that's MCH.
So tell us what role did you have in Midsummer?
I was Hermia because
Nice.
there's but little, she is fierce.
That's awesome. That's great. That's our musical this spring at MCH. So stay in touch with that. Let's see. We're short on time, so we're gonna get through the rest of the hands that are raised. I think then we'll do a wrap up and we'll be done with our time together. Alex?
One of my favorite parts of the week is doing chorus with everyone, singing together. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. If we did that over Zoom, it wouldn't sound quite as good. But I really loved the feeling of just singing the same thing in a circle with everyone. If that makes any sense. It just had so much beauty when you were with everyone doing the same thing, and I really love that.
Yeah, thank you. Duncan?
Well, first off, I'd like to say, for the most part, music making is witchcraft to me. As far as I'm concerned, all of you are it's black magic. Ugh. But the only experiences making music I've had is at MCH, with choir, with chorus, and the actual lessons Miss Amy did, and I have really fond memory of those. And music club. I don't think it's still a thing, is it?
Not right now.
No, it was, but music club was very fun.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. Lou?
I think that, sorry, I just forgot. But going off of what Duncan said about music club, I remember very vividly picking out the Passion Project songs with Amina one year. Like we were sitting at like the chalkboard table and like all like looking at Miss Amy's phone, just trying to find a song about like hammers or like worms or anything. And I think that was really, really fun. And Alex, I'm sorry about the worm song that you ended up with, but that was the only one about worms you could find.
Also, I love that you did a passion project about worms, but that's a separate conversation. Sawyer.
I like the one about hammers.
I wanted to say that when the first first time we did the Odyssey, and I was Athena, and my stuffed owl was in that play. She was Amina's owl.
That's awesome. All right, and Sophie.
I started out not wanting to do anything for any plays. But then in 4th grade, I decided I was gonna do something big, and I ended up being one of the main characters, which is really big compared to being a torch or being a hoop or something like that. That's what I did in the first play I was in, the Odyssey, and I thought it was good for me to be someone high up there, and I feel like that made me really happy. So yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you. And you are wonderful. And Halima, Miss Melissa sent me a message saying you just made her year. Oh, yes. She's an attendee on our webinar, and she's so excited that you locked into that theater experience with her. All right, we are at 12:01, so our webinar is finished. Our student and alumni panel for 2021 is over, and I just want to say for Miss Jen and for all the faculty and staff and teachers at MCH, we love you all, and we're so excited that you came and shared yourselves with us today. And stay well, stay healthy. You're amazing. Stay in touch. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Halima, for your leadership today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Himi.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.